Hi there, and welcome to Creatrix, a 5-day virtual retreat for conscious business owners, where together we are shifting paradigms and forging pathways for world revolution through the power of conscious business. During this week together, we're interviewing several incredible, highly conscious female entrepreneurs, healers, and metaphysical leaders who are contributing to world healing through their powerful gifts, offering passionate perspectives on creativity, spirit, and conscious business practices. I'm your host for this event, Theresa Pridemore, owner of Sovereign Spirit, and I'm excited to introduce you to our next speaker, Pegah Kadkhodian. And hi, Pegah. Thank you for coming and joining us for this event.
Hi, I'm so thrilled to be here with you, and I just absolutely love what you're doing and the intention behind it. So I'm deeply honored to be one of your guests.
It's so wonderful to have you. I'm really excited for our talk today. I want to introduce you to everyone and help them get to know you a little better. So Pegah is a renowned speaker, international trainer, and resilience expert, and she believes wholeheartedly in the transformative nature of resilience. Over the past 20 years, she has cultivated a holistic approach to coaching, blending cutting-edge techniques and complementary philosophies to inspire a completely new way of being in the world. By guiding clients toward their inherent gifts and inner wisdom, Pegah unlocks the profoundly resilient nature written deep within us all. Her own mastery of resilience began with the powerful women who raised her, a mother who left revolution-torn Iran when Pegah was just 3, and an aunt who endured political imprisonment and unspeakable loss. Witnessing the strength of these women gifted Pegah with extraordinary examples of our ability to nurture thriving out of hardship, and she has continued to explore the power of our thoughts as a master practitioner and certified trainer of neurolinguistic programming, hypnotherapy, and mental and emotional release therapy, with additional certificates in the Enneagram, Theta Healing, and Huna. Combined with her history as a certified yoga teacher and her work as a board-certified integrative nutrition coach, her diverse experience gives clients a truly embodied, fully empowered, and uniquely holistic opportunity to ignite their own resilience and transform their lives. Whether engaged in individual coaching, teaching at corporate events or universities, leading wellness retreats, or hosting the brand new Radical Resilience, the podcast, it is Pegah Kadkhodian's joy to help us find the power of our radical resilience, to harness and hone it, and to learn how to call it our own. And today we're going to talk about radical resilience, a psycho-spiritual approach to healing and coming home to ourselves. And I'm really excited to hear more about that. Just as a start out, tell me a little bit about what radical resilience is and what you mean by that.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for that intro. It's rare that I ever get to hear that. It's just sort of my bio, and it was written and then I just like put it out in the world and I forgot about it. And then when I hear it, I'm like, man, that's a lot. Like
I know.
I'm like impressed by myself. Just kidding. But I guess I've been doing it a long time, so I suppose it's going to be lengthy. But radical resilience is a term that I coined because I approach the cultivation of resilience in a very different way than I think most people look at resilience. I think when we look at resiliency, very often what people think about is bouncing back, right, from adversity or hardship, or simply pulling yourself up from the bootstraps and moving forward. And my approach to resilience is very different. It's a psycho-spiritual approach, and it's kind of inherent in the title of our talk, in that it's all about the journey back home to our essential nature, to our essential selves. And what I mean by that is we very often get over-identified with the things that we do in the world. So be that our careers, our roles and responsibilities as parents or siblings or children, if you will, of parents. We get very identified with, I am this person's spouse, or I am the CEO of this company, or I am this person's parent. And those things are wholly transitory and impermanent, as you know, as with anything in life. We also get very attached to and identified with our personality structures. And that's where things like the Enneagram really help us see the shortcomings of getting too fixated in our personality structures. And so, what I mean by coming home to your essential self is your ability to not only transcend, but integrate all those aspects of yourself and realize that you are not any one of those things. You are all of those things and none of those things. That what you really are at your core and your essence is this unique, bright light, unlike any other light, this incredible spirit, unlike any other spirit out there, and that you are an aspect of the divine made manifest here to do something very specific to you, that you have a dharma or a calling that's moving you down your path or pulling you forward, and that very often waking up requires being sort of knocked awake, which can often come as a result of difficult times, hardships, incredible loss. And so to me, the journey back home to yourself is one of resilience, but it's also one of waking up. So very often when people are knocked awake, it's uncomfortable. And yeah, we need that skill of resilience to be able to pick ourselves back up and move down the path that was intended for us. But my approach is that when you find your way back home to your essence, which sometimes requires a very uncomfortable knocking down or falling down on the path, when you tap into that, nothing and no one can rock your world. Meaning you can endure any hardship, you can navigate any unexpected life event, and you are like a palm tree in a hurricane. And you might get whipped every which direction, but you come right back to standing upright, whole and healed and congruent, and knowing who you are and what you're about.
That's beautiful. That's really, I love that way of looking at resiliency. I think that it's so important for us to not identify with our labels, and to also, from the standpoint of resiliency, not have to feel like go into fixing mode on with ourselves and forcing ourselves into things, but finding alignment is a much better way to, like you said, to be able to weather a storm and to stay flexible through things. So I love that.
I mean, I can tell you from personal experience, everything I teach is because I've experienced it.
Mm-hmm.
Resiliency is not working yourself out of the pain.
Right.
Resiliency is not just keep going. That just leads to burnout.
Right. Right. Well, you hear a lot of, I want to talk a little bit at some point about Dharma and your perspective on Dharma. But first of all, I want to ask you how it is that you use spirituality in the way that you coach, because you ground your work in a lot of terms that I hear in spiritual circles. So
Yeah.
what would you say?
It took me a while to come out of my spiritual closet, so to speak. And for a long time, I was very like closeted about the fact that I take a psycho-spiritual approach to things, because I do come from a background of NLP, which is very cerebral. It's almost clinical, and it comes from psychotherapy and hypnotherapy. But the truth is that they're complementary. You can have both. You can have psychology and spirituality. And the beauty of the time that we live in is that there's a lot of evidence-based science to back up what we've known in spiritual circles for thousands of years. So my approach to the work I do is very spiritual in that I start off by saying your journey back to your essential self to find your resiliency starts with recognizing that you have an essential self, that you are more than the sum of your parts, that you are an essence. Yeah. And I always talk about your avatar. And that word actually comes from a Hindu term meaning, a divine, or the divine, like a divine entity made manifest. Mm-hmm. So when I say avatar, it's like your divine self coming into manifestation. Mm-hmm. And what is that avatar? Like, who are you when you are most connected to spirit? Which, by the way, is the God of your understanding. So if your understanding of spirit is science because you're an atheist, great. If your understanding of spirit is energy, because that's your model of the world, perfect. If your understanding of spirit is God and Jesus Christ, cool. There is no one spiritual view of things that this excludes, right? So it starts with that. So that's the first way that I bring spirituality into the work. But then, we talk a lot about, step one of the process is unconditional acceptance and surrender. So there's 7 pillars to the radical resilience transformation process. And the first is unconditional acceptance and surrender, which is a concept that's very prevalent in almost every mystical tradition, any spiritual tradition that we look at, right? Which is just surrender, let go, let God, accept, lean in, stop pushing against what is. Step one. Because from there, healing can occur. I mean, even in the 12-step program, right? You have the serenity prayer. So then, once we've accepted things are the way they are and we surrender to the divine, then we move down the path of healing and then ultimately thriving, right? Which has to do with connection and community and creativity and joy. And then ultimately coming to a place of who am I, right? And uncovering your dharma and your purpose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which is so important, especially something that I think as a conscious business owners is something that we are always trying to do is get in alignment with our dharma.
Yeah.
Go
Yeah.
beyond just having a job or a business, but to actually find a connection to our dharma. You talk a lot about the Enneagram and NLP. So tell us a little bit about what each one is and how they fit into the work that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, I'm a collector of modalities and tools. And over the years, I have collected so many, obviously, you read my bio, so many certifications. And I started, of course, in the realm of yoga. And that was my first foray into spirituality and self awareness or self exploration. But then I very quickly found these 3 little letters, NLP. And I didn't know what they were. I just went to the training because I had heard about it. And I was like, I don't really know. But I instantly fell in love with it because I found a set of tools and techniques that I view now as being the handbook or the how to for a spiritual practice. Because for us to have a connection to spirit and to really come into our dharma, we have to do a lot of healing. We all have deep, deep wounds, be it from this life, generational wounds, or past lives. And the mechanism for addressing and unpacking those wounds for me is multifold, but one of the main modalities that I tap into and use is NLP because it comes from the realm of psychology, neuroscience, and hypnotherapy. And it is literally a way of rewiring the brain and unpacking baggage and processing trauma. The other mechanisms that I use are the Enneagram, which is also a psychospiritual tool. That symbol dates back over 5,000 years. You see the symbol in ancient Egypt. We've seen it in a lot of mystical traditions, including Gnostic Christianity, Sufi Islam. So that symbol has been around a long time. Mm-hmm. And then it was made to be more of a psycho-spiritual tool by people like Claudio Naranjo, who brought it, over to the West and really created the system that we know now, which is personality types, right? It didn't start that way. And so I find that the Enneagram gives us a roadmap for our personality structures and the ways in which we find ourselves fixated in those personality structures, which you could also call ego structures. And it gives us a roadmap for how to break out of those personality structures. The Enneagram is not designed to keep you in the box of your personality and just have you make excuses for bad behavior by saying, oh, well, I'm an 8 or I'm a 9. You are not any one number. Your personality structure sits at a point on the Enneagram. You have access to all 9 types. They reside within you. You just have one that's more prevalent because of your psychology, because of your nature, which you came in with, your natural temperament, and your nurture, which you gained along the way. And so those 2 things together give you the roadmap for how to break out and come into your essential self, your essence. And then NLP gives you the tools for breaking out and, processing the trauma, the wounds that hold you in that structure. But I also use things like internal family systems, because that's really important, to be able to integrate your parts, so that's not constellation work, that's different. Internal family systems, and I use the somatic internal family systems process, is all about integrating these different aspects of yourself that have gotten fragmented, right? So you have protector parts and you have these vulnerable parts that have been relegated and exiled in the far reaches of your unconscious mind, but also spiritual techniques like theta healing, which is a spiritual practice for connecting with source, for connecting with the creator, and then being able to do healing work from that place. So those 4 things are kind of my big primary modalities. But the reason I emphasize NLP and the Enneagram is that I've also made it my mission in life to be able to get that work out to as many people as possible. And I've created a training company to do that. So I'm certifying coaches who will have the skill set of, both basic and advanced NLP, the Enneagram, internal family systems from a somatic perspective, as well as the option of integrating theta healing, so that when they go out into the world to work with people one-on-one and become conscious business owners, that they feel wholly equipped and confident to do that in a way that no other coach, I think, does, unless they take the time, several years, if you will, almost a decade in my case, to collect those tools. So I thought, why not give them everything that they need to be able to go out there, and whether they want to do resilience work or whether they want to go out there and coach other business owners to have amazing businesses, or they want to do executive coaching, or they want to do relationship coaching or health coaching, they are equipped with all the tools that they need to go out there and do that.
That's a great approach. I love it. I love that you're spreading what you have learned and your cultivated tools and wisdom out in a modality or a combined modality. I think that's brilliant.
Thank you.
You mentioned yoga. So how does yoga play into what you do?
Thank
I
you.
love it when
So
people combine everything in this beautiful way, like they bring all of themselves to something. I think that's always wonderful.
I've spent so much time as a business owner asking myself, how do I bring all of my gifts together in a way that makes sense? And I remember almost 7 years ago working with a business coach, asking that question of her and of myself, like, how do I bring together everything I do in a way that actually makes sense to people? Because it's like, well, you're a health coach, but you're also a resilience coach and you do NLP. Like, how does all of this fit together? And, it took me stepping away from teaching yoga for a couple of years, and only 2, but I came right back because I've been teaching for 12 years and I've certified hundreds of yoga teachers. But it took me stepping away from it to realize, oh, yoga is the embodiment piece of this, right? So it's not all cerebral. So in addition to the somatic internal family systems work, which incorporates the body and breath and touch, it's also yoga, because yoga helps us to connect to our physical bodies in a way that most regular exercise does not. And yoga has such a strong spiritual component to it, with the 8-limb path and the Vedas and, the Yoga Sutras. So if you choose to bring yoga into your life in a full way, it can be the physical component of the resilience work or embodied NLP work. Meaning, one of the pillars of radical resilience is radical self-care, which has to do with not just the mental, emotional, and spiritual, but the physical. So how are you moving your body? How are you feeding and hydrating your body? How are you resting the body? But yoga, in my opinion, really allows for the integration of all 4 levels of being: the physical, the mental, emotional, and the spiritual. And it is the piece of the puzzle that I think was missing for me as I was doing NLP trainings around the globe, and realizing, oh, we're not really getting into our bodies. We're just sitting in these, freezing cold hotel ballrooms, learning this very cerebral, very masculine thing. And I asked myself, how do we bring femininity and embodiment and receptivity into this beautiful body of work? Because it's been dominated by men for so long. And that's NLP, right? NLP has been dominated by men for the last 40 years. Don't get me wrong, I love men. I think they're wonderful. So I'm not one of those feminists that's like, boo, men. I'm like, no, I love the masculine. We need both energies. And we need more of the feminine in the realm of NLP. And I find that bringing things like yoga into that world, or even into the world of the resilience work that I do, taps into that feminine energy. And when I say feminine, I don't mean gender roles. I mean qualities of energy. I think you can be male, female, non-binary, and still tap into feminine energy and masculine energy and the integration of both. And I think yoga is an incredible vehicle for the embodiment piece of what I do.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I find whenever I'm working through something and I'm doing yoga, you just can't really explain exactly how energy can shift and how you can receive new insights just from having done the work. Just getting on the mat, and it's really amazing how it can just unblock energy so with so much grace, you know.
And you don't even, and that's the thing, the beauty of it, you don't have to do much other than show up and let your body move into these shapes in a way that makes sense, right? So I very often say in my classes, let the posture work on you.
Mm-hmm.
You're not working on the posture. You're not trying to perfect something.
Mm-hmm.
You get into the posture in a way that's safe and very alignment based. I'm very alignment based because alignment allows the posture to do the work that it needs to do on you. So you get into this posture and then just breathe and let the posture do the work of unlocking the energy, freeing up the energy in your body, letting it circulate through your body in a way that works, which then opens you up to receiving insights and receiving, these sort of like revelatory aha moments from spirit or whatever else you want to call it. I didn't realize how much yoga was such a part of who I am, really, until I stepped away from it and felt this huge gap. I was like, something's missing. And then I came back and I was like, oh, yeah.
And it doesn't have to be difficult for it to do a lot of work. You can do
Not
very
at all.
simple yoga moves and receive a lot. You could just do it for 5 or 10 minutes and receive a lot. It really doesn't have to be difficult.
I always say yoga is a breath practice. The postures are there. They're great. They're optional. They help unlock the energies in the body. But ultimately, yoga is a breath practice. So if you're doing yin, where you're just holding, maybe 4 or 5 postures within an hour for several minutes, but you're breathing, you're doing yoga.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how some of these tools work together specifically to support conscious business owners. So
Yes.
What was it? Family systems is one thing that you mentioned. That immediately jumped out at me as something I'm like, that probably plays out and work quite a bit, but I imagine understanding your Enneagram and having some neurolinguistic programming tools at your disposal too could probably help a lot moving through blocks. So I'm really curious.
I mean, I work with CEOs, not exclusively, of course, but for whatever reason, maybe it's just because I put the intention out there that I wanted to work with people who are running businesses, because I think the business world has incredible impact and influence, globally. So it's huge for conscious business owners or business owners of any kind who may not even know that they want to be conscious to have these tools, because you are running a business. At the end of the day, how you run your business is indicative of who you are and how you run your life. So if you're running yourself into the ground as a business owner, that's not particularly conscious, even if you call yourself a conscious business owner. And I say that because I did it, right? Here I am teaching resilience and consciousness and spirituality. And, over the course of the last 11 years that I've had my business, I have experienced burnout 3 times. once when my dad died, once after I stepped away from teaching NLP, and once most recently, like just 6 months ago.
Mhm.
So I'm for sure a work in progress. But I do see that every aspect of this plays into being a conscious business owner because we have to walk the talk.
Mhm.
So, as a business owner, being able to unpack your baggage using neurolinguistic programming, being able to articulate your message in a way, right? Using language skills, which is NLP, to articulate your message in a way that's heartfelt and authentic, but effective as well, is important. Being able to use internal family systems to integrate parts. So if you have not integrated or fragmented parts within you who are running the system, well, you're going to run the risk of having a protector part, if you will, running the show when it comes to your business. And then you have some vulnerable, exiled part that might have a lot to contribute to your business that's not getting their voice heard. So being able to befriend and integrate all the aspects of yourself and let pieces and parts of yourself also have a voice in what you're doing because they've been silenced for so long as a conscious business owner is huge. Mm-hmm. The Enneagram lets you know what are your tendencies as a business owner. As an Enneagram 8, my personality sits at 8. I have a tendency to be very generative, very outgoing, and to want to lead as much as I want to collaborate. But if I'm not careful, I can burn out because Enneagram 8s don't know their limits very often. Mm-hmm. As an Enneagram, I have a 7 wing. Well, 7 wings are like nonstop. And they are also like have shiny object syndrome, right? Because they're the enthusiasts. And so they're like, oh, this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing. And if I'm not careful with that 7 wing, I'm saying yes to everything. And all of a sudden I'm like, I don't have the bandwidth to take on 25 things. And I needed to learn to do fewer things very well rather than a lot of things not so well. Mm. And the book Essentialism by Greg McCoy, I think that's his name, was very important for me. But depending on your Enneagram type, you're going to have tendencies as a conscious business owner. And so to have an awareness of like, what is my type and how do I operate? And what are my tendencies and what can I catch myself in the act doing as a conscious business owner to ensure that I can stay, 1, conscious, and 2, sustainable?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Sustainability is so important. And I know for a lot of spirit-led or spirit-based or I want to say intentional business owners, people who really are sensitive to energy and their intuition, that alignment is so important in having those tools to stay in alignment so that you're not, like you said, running yourself ragged or chasing after things that aren't important. I can see how really understanding family systems can be really key to helping us not be acting from a wounded place in our work. That's something that I think happens a lot and it can really limit us and create self-sabotaging patterns. And I imagine NLP helps one work through all of that.
Oh, I mean, when it comes to self-sabotage, there isn't a set of tools and techniques that are better for mitigating that. And, you speak to spirit-based and spirit-led people who very often are working with energy or sensitive to energy. And I am one of those people, who is an empath, is very sensitive to energies and didn't realize how sensitive I was until I was wearing myself out. And, within the context of what I do and I teach, I share with people energy hygiene practices. Because as much as it's important for you to take a shower and eat well, it's also important for you to clean and clear your energy field because everything is energy. And if you're someone who's sensitive to energy, you're someone who's an empath, you're somebody who is wide open to letting your energy field be impacted by energy. It's very important. And I always like to say, to any of our beautiful, wonderful energy workers out there, be very careful about the way that you articulate the work that you do. And this is, again, neurolinguistic programming. Your unconscious mind is always listening, and energy doesn't really have consciousness. Energy does what we tell it to do and what our belief systems tell it to do.
Mhm.
So if you say things like, this person's an energy vampire,
Mhm.
effectively what you're doing is giving permission for that person to suck you dry of your energy,
Mm.
right? You're opening yourself up to that being a reality. If you say things like, I feel drained at the end of the day, effectively what you're saying is, I'm a battery
Mm.
and I'm not using alternating current energy. I'm using direct current energy, and you're draining me like a battery.
Mm.
And your body is listening, right? Your nervous system, your unconscious mind is your whole body, your whole nervous system. And your words are telling the body and your nervous system what to do and the energy what to do. And so I always just like to say to my beautiful, wonderful energy workers, I never say healers because I don't really think we're healers. I think we're vessels through which healing happens. You know, make sure that the energy that you're doing or the energy work that you're doing is not coming from you, but is coming through you.
Mhm.
And that the nuance of the language that's used there is so important,
Mhm.
because otherwise you do tap out and you hear about the wounded healer, and you do hear about, these, healing practitioners whose lives very sadly and unfortunately come to an end prematurely because they didn't maintain their own energy field. They didn't practice energy hygiene. They didn't disconnect from their clients after working with them. And so, that's where all of these techniques come into play. Internal family systems is about handling your wounds. It's not about family, right? It's not about like, let's look at your family structure. It's about your internal family system, right? Who is running the show in your system, and healing those wounds, right? Healing the wounds of your exiled parts and letting the protector parts know that they can be less protective,
Mhm.
and that your essence is the one that's in charge. Your embodied self is the one that's in charge.
Mhm.
So, as conscious business owners, to have this skill set, I think allows us to level up in ways that we might not have been able to before.
Mhm. That makes sense. Yeah. Energy is huge. And having tools for managing and clearing your energy, I think, is very, very important, especially when you're working with people, which, everyone is to some extent or another. Helps you to also keep a distance from things and kind of have a better way of knowing what's yours and what's not yours.
Exactly.
And so that we don't get caught up in dramas that are about like recreating patterns with people in our lives, or with our own internal wounds, just like constantly revisiting those things versus actually being really present with what's really going on. It's hard to do that if you don't have tools to clear your energy or your awareness
Totally.
of what's
And,
going
it's very cool that we get to do what we do if we're in the helping profession, because
on.
our clients end up being mirrors for us of what
Mhm.
we're dealing with. And if we can't separate ourselves from that,
Mhm.
um, it becomes very tricky for us, to your point, to be present with what's going on in the moment.
Mhm.
So it's in one way very cool because it's like, oh, look at what showed up today, in my session. I guess there's some work for me to do there on myself. But if you are in a place where you've done your work, then you
Mhm.
can see where, like, oh, this is a reflection of who I used to be or how I used to be.
Mhm.
And I can separate myself from that. And I can come from a frame of reference to be of service in a way that I couldn't have been if I hadn't had those experiences or those wounds.
Mhm.
But it takes a lot of work. I mean, as healing professionals, I think we have to be doing our own work so much more than anybody else.
Mhm. Mhm.
I have two therapeutic people that I work with, one psycho-spiritual counselor and one therapist, every week.
Mm. That's really great. Yeah, I also do the same thing. I find it just makes everything work better. And if you're working with clients too, if you are a healer, you need someone to hold space for you, you know?
You know, a jar can't see its own label.
Yeah. Never heard that term. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all need to have someone hold space for us, whether it's something therapeutic or something like body work. You know, I
Yeah.
once I started getting body work on a regular basis, I found that
Huge.
that made a huge difference for me as well. So yeah, it's very, very important to make sure that you get the same kind of or some kind of care that's in alignment with the care you're putting out. And that
Mhm.
also is good for energy management too, you know, whether it's
Yeah.
therapeutic or body level.
To your point, acupuncture, Reiki, bodywork, massages, you know, chiropractics,
Mm-hmm.
all of that, I think it's important, you know, so that it's again, we're maintaining ourselves on all four levels: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And our energy body is operating at all four of those levels, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like you also teach some of these tools alongside the NLP Enneagram and family systems work that you do.
I do.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. I think it's like it's a full picture. It all comes together really beautifully. Do you end
I
up
mean,
doing
it's
yoga?
20 plus years of work.
Yeah, I know. It sounds like a lot. Do you, when you do yoga work, is that something that you do remotely with people somehow, or do you end up doing some of it in person? How do you weave
Yeah,
yoga?
so it's a bit of both. I mean, currently I'm teaching at Core Power Yoga again, which has been my home for 12 years. I started with them in Chicago. I worked for the company in Minnesota. I worked for the company in San Diego, and now I'm back in the Twin Cities.
Mhm.
And I teach at Grand Avenue, Highland Park, Northeast Minneapolis, and it's just, you know, it's where I started. And I think the organization has gone through a lot of its own healing and transformation, especially in the last 2 years. I think it's recognized where its opportunities were and has made such an effort to increase its awareness and consciousness around diversity, equity, and inclusion, which was a place where they were lacking in the past, but really have made concerted efforts to level up. And so I'm proud of them, and I'm proud to be a part of an organization that does that. And I'm, you know, I'm a proud teacher for Core Power Yoga, and I've certified hundreds of teachers through them. But I've also done my own retreats, and I've also done my own online yoga. And so I do have like several, probably about 20 or 30 yoga classes that are available online should people want them, right? So it's kind of like part of my library of content that people can tap into. And certainly, if you're a private elite level client, you get access to all of that. Um, you know, and if someone wanted me to do private sessions with them, for example, I'm available for that, you know. But currently, my teaching is primarily in person and live at Core Power Yoga in Minnesota. So
That's great. Well, it just sounds like you give people a way of connecting with that part of your work while they're working with you in a coaching container too. So
absolutely,
it's just
absolutely,
really, I think it's wonderful when people find a way to bring that body work, that um, to bring some kind of physical component into like you said, the psycho spiritual work. If you can do that as well, it's just like the full picture, you know. So I
yeah.
love it. I'm very impressed when people do that. It's not something that people think they can do very often, you know, and when you do it well, it can be really a beautiful combination of things.
Agreed.
Well, this has been absolutely wonderful, Pegah. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us and your time. Um, I'm really excited for people to get to know you better and to connect with you. And we have a wonderful free gift that Pegah is offering down below the video. It's a free 45-minute coaching call and a free ebook when you register for your call. So that is so generous. Thank you so much for offering that to our viewers today. So I highly recommend that you take advantage of that because that is a very generous gift. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Absolutely. I'm honored to do it. Um, and I want to just mention, like, shameless plug, because this is coming out, that my training program, you know, should you want to do the NLP certification, whether you want to be a coach or not, actually launches on August 24th. So it's not long after I think this is going to be out in the world. So if you're interested in that, I know it's pretty short notice, but it's something that we're going to be offering on an ongoing basis. Please feel free to reach out to me. We can talk about it during your coaching session. And I want people to really know this is a coaching session. So this is not an enrollment call, right? I want you to come to the session with something that you want to be coached on, whether it's using the Enneagram or something else. But I want to give you 45 minutes of an experience with me that you can say, oh, I had a feeling, I got a real true experience of what it was like to work with her. Will I, offer you the opportunity to continue on? Sure. But I want people to know this is genuinely a coaching call. So come to the call prepared with something that you want coaching on.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for offering that. I am sure we'll get some people who just jump in right on that. That sounds awesome.
I'm happy to do it. It's a $250 value. And that ebook is I want to just give you that because it gives you a picture of the 7 pillars of resilience. So my absolute pleasure.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that'll be great. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. It's been lovely to get to know you better. And I'm sure all of our viewers really enjoy getting to know you as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you for doing this and getting these beautiful voices of all these other conscious entrepreneurs out there. I'm so glad to know you and so glad to know people like you who are all about kind of getting the word out and spreading the love because we need it. God does our world need it so much right now. And then the Dalai Lama said, the world will be saved by the Western woman.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are, like doing
Yes.
everything we can to save this crazy, chaotic world that we're in. And I think we can.
Yeah. We're all doing our best for sure. Every little bit helps. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your kind words. I appreciate it. And I'm so excited about the group of women we have. It's just a phenomenal collection of women. Thank you for being a part of that.
Thank you.
Well, everyone, thank you for joining us today. You can continue on in the conversation. Let us know what you thought about this talk. Share what's going on with you and your business. We would love to hear from you in a Facebook group called Soul Leaders and Visible Visionaries. So just type that in your search bar, Soul Leaders and Visible Visionaries, and you can join us there for continued conversation from this event. And come share with us what's happening for you. And thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you had a lovely time, and hopefully you will join us for more of the interviews coming out through this event. All righty, it's lovely having you here. Thank you, and goodbye to everyone watching. Have a beautiful day.